Okay, we're going to get started with the committee of the whole meeting. We ready to go, Bridget? Okay, good evening again. The hour being 6:58 PM on Monday, February 10th, 2025. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the Whole meeting. Bridget, can we have a roll call for the committee meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark.
Here.
Trustee Cote.
Here.
Trustee Hendricks.
Here.
Trustee Niramatsu.
Here.
Trustee Gilhuli.
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Here.
And President Garvey.
Here. Thank you very much, Bridget. We have several items up for discussion tonight on tonight's Committee of the Whole. The first is a discussion regarding planning and zoning case number 2503, a request for special use permit under section 62-30 of the Village Code to allow a massage establishment at 3745 Grand Boulevard, being Luxxe Honor. As always, the board has a very detailed memo from staff related to this and the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation, but I am going to ask our Economic Development Director, Libby Popovic, to make a presentation to the board. Thank you, Libby.
Certainly, thank you. All right, on January 23rd, the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed a petition under Section 6230 for a special use to allow massage services at 3745 Grand Boulevard. This was recommended with a unanimous approval of 7-0 for the for Luxxe Honor Apothecary and Wellness Center in there. The owner is a registered nurse, and she is here as the petitioner, and she'll be able to say a few words and answer any questions you have. She's a registered nurse, aromatherapist, and oncology certified esthetician. Luxxe Honor has been in business for 10 years. They currently have a location in LaGrange, and they're looking to move their services here to Brookfield. They sell botanical-based oils and lotions that target various health conditions, and those are sold both online and in the retail space. So approximately 60% of it is retail space. Go to the next slide. In addition to selling the services, they also offer esthetician services for facials, and they also offer massage services. The esthetician services are permitted as of right, but they would also like to continue with the massage services, which do require special use variance. The esthetician and massage services are ancillary to the regular retail that they have set up at the front of the shop. And you can see this is the location. It's Andy Kwok's building right in the downtown area. The subject site is approximately 2207 square feet, and it's improved with a 2-story commercial building. This is in the downtown SA1 core mixed use. And the first floor retail business that Luxxe Honor has there does comply, as well as enhance the SA1 district intent of that zone. So the zoning ordinance does include massage establishments under the general use category, but requires a special use permit in the downtown core mixed area. And the ordinance mandates that the massage can be used, it can only be used in the back part of the business, away from the sidewalk frontage. And as you will see in the next picture, this is the floor plan that was presented as part of the petition. You can see in the back where the two arrows are. Those are the 2 back rooms in Luxxe Honor that would be available for both massages and facials. Standard of review in this case that was also presented in front of the PZC. The application for special use should be considered in the context of compatibility of use with the extent and purpose of the property's zoning district, the compatibility of the use with the existing uses on the site and in the vicinity, and then special actions that are contemplated to modify any unique, special, or unusual impacts which the special use may cause or intensify on the property or other facilities. In this case, the PZC did recommend approval of the special use variance, subject to some of the conditions. One is that the massage establishment is accessory to Luxxe Honor retail store, which it appears that it is. 2, that the property is developed in compliance with the floor plans that were submitted, which it has been. We actually just had another inspection of the premises recently. And there are only 2 rooms in the back. And the third is that prior to operating the massage establishment portion of the business, the rest of the business is approved conditionally. The massage has not. That the massage establishment license has to be obtained. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of Libby? At this point, I'm going to give the applicant an opportunity to address the board and tell us a little bit about the business, but at this point, any questions for staff?
Just one, the massage establishment license, that's not issued by the village, correct?
That would be subject to the special use.
So isn't this licensed outside of Brookfield?
She is licensed by the state, yes.
But it says there that the license needs to be obtained before,
Well, she has to have a valid massage license, which she can speak to on that. She is licensed by the state currently. So unless something has happened with that license, it is still a current license.
But I think what Trustee Ketchmark is asking, is there another license that if the board were to approve this at the next meeting, is there a massage license the village has to issue?
No, there's no separate license.
Okay.
It's a state-approved business.
So if the board approved the ordinance or the variance, then by showing the state license before they could operate? Is that?
Just to clarify, the 60% that you referenced, is that revenue, 60% of sales from retail? Or is that?
And I'll let the petitioner respond more fully on that, but it seems to be it's the retail portion of the front of the space, the usage of the space, as well as the revenue. And she can address any specific questions as to the gross and the net revenue on that.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe that was an important part of the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation was, because, I mean, we've had requests for massage establishments in the past, and with the ideas of what we wanted in the area, the retail sales tax and things, revenue was important. So this, from what I'm hearing and understanding, that it was an important part of their recommendation.
Yes.
From the layout in the pictures, and I've been to the shop in LaGrange, it seems like it's pretty much in line with what you have existing there, which is the front retail, and then, some rooms in the back that are accessible through like an entryway and check-in space.
Well, if there's no other questions for staff, would you like to come forward, the applicant? Would you like, if you don't have to, but with this chance to address the board and maybe a little commercial for your new business? I've driven by and I've seen your social media posts
Thank you.
about your opening.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be in Brookfield. I've been in business, as Libby said, about 10 years. I started in Hinsdale, then moved to LaGrange, and now I'm beautiful Brookfield. And I do have a smaller version of what I had in LaGrange. I have the service company, and then I have the product company. And I suspect more of the revenue will be coming from products. It's where my passion is. The service company is more turnkey now. So I'm excited to focus on more product education about toxins in American products, focus on bringing more products to my brick and mortar, and focus on e-commerce and my Amazon. My deodorant is on Amazon. As part of my membership, my massage, facials, and Reiki, I have it as part of what I call a self-care membership. I always say I'm not a spa, but I'm a wellness studio. We want people to get into that mindset of receiving self-care. And as part of my membership model, I have an auto-renew system. I've been doing this for 10 years, and it gets people to look at this as a lifestyle instead of a luxury. So people come in once a month, and they can get either the massage or the facials. Plus, they always get 10% off of my products. So they come in once a month, and if they can't make their appointment, I always allow their family member within their 4 walls to also come in for that service at no extra charge. With the service, with my self-care membership, it's really important to offer those services because it does fuel my products. My massages are more therapeutic. They use my products that I create. I have a healing blend that I call muscle or pain, and it really does help with inflammation. With my nursing and my aromatherapy background, I love to create plant medicine, what I call plant medicine. And during the massage, my massage therapists use, my blends for a muscle or aches and pains, for sinusitis or breath, or just calm the mind. So it sort of fuels that. My clients, they depend on this once a month. I've built, this business on a lot of marketing, and, I'm hoping I can get this passed right away because I do have appointments coming up. And as part of my membership, my members are expecting that service. Also, my staff, Amina, she does have a licensed massage background by the state. I actually turned it in to the village this past week, so you have documentation of that she is a licensed massage therapist. I wanted to be ahead of it, so you guys had it. So we're ready. I think the community's ready, and I hope you are.
Thank you so much for the presentation tonight, and thank you for choosing Brookfield. I think staff probably explained to you, we can't and don't vote on this tonight. It would be on the agenda 2 weeks from tonight. Tonight, the Committee of the Whole, we discuss items, and then they're placed on the agenda. So 2 weeks from tonight, the 24th, would be the earliest the board could address this.
Okay, and I will, obviously we have to abide by that, but if there's any way that I could have it expedited, I would really appreciate it, because my members, that they've already paid, are expecting that. I've been able to have my therapist go into my old space, but that lease is up, so it will be a little difficult, this next week. If we can.
And I understand we have
provide that.
Open Meetings Act issues compliant that wasn't on the board agenda for a vote tonight, so we can't vote on it for tonight. And I'm glad you opened your business, and, I know the service has been there, and, there was no guarantee or promise that you would get this. I think the Planning and Zoning Commission was supportive, and I haven't heard any objections from the board, but they do have to vote after it's placed on the agenda. Do you have appointments booked in the coming week or 2 or 2 weeks, or?
I do, and I have my staff that's been with me for a while. I don't want to lose her. She's a single mom.
Sure.
I can ask my previous landlord if I can continue to, have her practice there, but it's not, it's, all of my things are moved out.
I understand. I'll talk to staff, and, I would like to see does the board have any questions of the applicant at this time?
A couple brief ones. So the LaGrange business is closed then, and you're not going to keep that?
It is, but my goal is to explore other locations, in the Illinois area and also Florida. So my goal is always to expand, but at this time it is closed. My landlord has not rented the space. I have a good relationship with him. He's allowed me to go back there, but like I said, it's not, it's not very nice and inviting. All of my things are moved out.
And you did offer the massage services over there?
I did. I've offered them, for the last 11 years. I've been in business since 2014. I started in Hinsdale, then LaGrange, and I always offered this self-care membership model.
Okay. When you initially were applying for the business license, did you have this discussion with staff that this is what you wanted to do?
I did, Libby. Everyone's been really open and candid. It was after I signed my lease, that I found out. So the lease was already signed, but it was, after that. But I did know, Libby and Scott had told me. So I've just been really, hoping that I can continue this.
Yeah, just it takes a little while between the Plan Commission and the board and the process for it. Does each person performing the massage need to be licensed by the state?
They do.
So
And
you-
also my estheticians do.
So you just have one person right now?
Right now I have one, but I would like to hire another one, so I have two. I have 2 estheticians, and then I would like to hire another massage therapist.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board for the applicant? And I'm sorry, could you state your name for the record, please? I should have had you do it at the beginning. I know who you are, but if you could state your name for the record.
Jennifer Delgitas.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll give the board a chance to review this and talk, and I'll be in touch with staff, and they'll reach out to you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for
Bye.
coming out tonight. Okay, the next item, which is another good sign of spring and summer coming, a discussion of the Chicago Grid Bike Race with an alternate bike path for 2025. We've been very happy to host the race in the past, and We talked about it during the race this year. Due to planned work on the 3,700 block of Grand, no matter how fast and how hard we schedule, we're not going to, 3,700 block of Grand will not be available. So staff worked together with Chicago Grit and Cycle Brookfield, Chris Valdez, to come up with a alternate possible route where we can still continue to host the race here in Brookfield. So there's a memo in the packet, there's a drawing with the alternate route, and I know the board members have some questions about that, but Libby, do you want to add anything at this point, or?
Let me pull that up. As you know, this is the third year, and the route is being changed because we do have some work that's being done in the downtown area. Chris Valdez is here. He does have a presentation, and that's the presentation you're looking at, and he can answer any questions, any specific questions about the route that's on there, if you'd like to hear from him.
Sure. Chris, thanks for being here tonight. If you
Good
could just
evening.
state your name
Of
for the
course,
record, I
yeah.
think we all know you, but
Chris Valdez, current president of Cycle Brookfield and resident of Brookfield for 16 years. So thank you, staff and Libby, for inviting me tonight. And we do have a quick presentation. I always like to get excited about, because as you mentioned, President Garvey, spring, summer will be here before we know it. So I have a quick video from last year's 2024 race. I just would encourage you all just to watch this. If you just click, it hopefully should play. Here we go. Yeah. So very exciting video from that was the men's professional race from last year's 2024 Cycle Brookfield Park Criterium, which is part of the larger 10-day Chicago Grit series. I like showing that video. It's a new video. It's our collaborator of the Chicago Grit. Cycle Brookfield has been very honored now to be invited back for the third year running of this series in 2025. Professional videos, drone footage. The Chicago Grid has really increased their marketing and really their production value year over year, and it's an honor to work with them to bring professional racing here to Brookfield. So as it was raised to Cycle Brookfield late last year, that the 2025 version of the Cycle Brookfield Criterium is part of the Grit on Grand Boulevard, as already mentioned, should be changed. We put together a possible route change as requested to continue the option to have the event on for this year. So the route change is in front of you, as you can see, and I think was in your packet prior to this. I just want to state it's sort of the challenge that comes with designing a bike course. I wish it was as easy as just picking streets and saying, here's a course, but there's a number of items that really need to come into play when selecting a good, exciting bike course. I wanted to show that video because, as you mentioned, or as the announcer mentioned, Steve, who's actually a longtime Brookfield, he was born and raised here in Brookfield, now was part of the series, an announcer part of the series. The Brookfield Criterium year over year has been one of the more challenging and exciting venues for bike racers. I have been very encouraged to hear that over the years, these professional bike racers have come up to me and said, amazing course, what you guys have in Brookfield is great, the resident outpouring that you have here is great, the streets are amazing, and you have a wonderful community involved event here. So creating a challenging course, an exciting course is the challenge here. So the option is in front of you. It's a single option. I wish I had more options, but this is what we we have. And the option is to go south of the tracks this year. So looking at the course, I'm drawing your attention toward the prairie. It's kind of hard to see. It's not clearly marked. But the start finish will be basically right in front of Irish Times. Head west toward Southview. Make a really sharp left turn onto Southview, continue east to Grove, passing through Prairie, north on Grove, make a sharp left back onto Burlington as it passes Creekside Park, and repeat. So the course that we designed has to have some challenges. That's how we do it here in Brookfield. We don't like boring, mundane bike racing. We want to make sure there's some excitement in a corner somewhere. So and the also challenge is we have to find it typically within less than a mile. Less than a mile, good route, good pavement. As staff, and I'm board, as I'm sure aware, Burlington is brand new paved with all the new work that's there. So from a bike perspective, it is gorgeous to ride. It is very fast. It would be really fast turning into that left turn onto Southview. And then it also gives us opportunities, which I'll talk about for our expo area, which in previous years, we've had our expo at the Linda Sokol Francis Brookfield Library, which has been very accommodating, allowing us to use for food vendors and food trucks at the library parking lot. In last year's version, we were able to host some along Brookfield Boulevard, right in front of Gosha's and the Brookfield Barbra. We had some expo area there as well. So part of the challenge, again, for this year is to accommodate all of those items. Have an expo, have it be less than a mile, preferably with minimal course adoptions, meaning any repave or anything along the course, and preferably pass along businesses that can be positively impact. The other benefit of this is that we do still retain a lot of spectator visibility along Burlington, just immediately south of the tracks. There's plenty of space, parking, green space where spectators, team tents can be placed. And it traverses, the neighborhood of Southview and the south end of Brookfield, passes by the park, which offers opportunity for volunteer staging, where Cycle Brookfield has our volunteer stations. We had to find some accommodations within the village, and thankfully, I think we came up with a fun and exciting course. Maybe I'll ask you to go to the next slide, Libby, if that's okay. So as I mentioned, some highlights here, and I'm happy to take questions following this. But the Prairie Ave grade crossing, as we have in the first 2 years of the iteration of this race, will still be shut down. That's the request, at least. Start finish, as I already mentioned, would be in front of Irish Times, just as a landmark. We all know Irish Times here in town. It's a nice, easy spot. It's nice and wide. There's actually a little chicane, which might make it fun kind of afterwards. I'll get to the technical, geeky bike stuff at a later point. I've already highlighted the sort of the route west on Burlington through Southview, North Grove, and continue, with the expo being immediately smashed between those two routes. So if you're in the expo center, you hypothetically look left and right and see bike racers coming at all times, keeping it nice and exciting. And then we would hope to utilize, of course, with approval, parts of Creekside Park as our volunteer and staging, because we do have a wonderful and engaged volunteer crowd, which we could not perform this task without that. But so the challenge to continue the race for the third year running, we want to continue that path moving forward with Chicago Grit, and we have a new course in front of you. So happy to take any
Thank you,
questions or
Chris.
comments.
Questions, comments from the board?
I had a question about, the map that you have in our packet lists some of the course as hidden. Is that a mistake?
Sure. No, that's intentional. So maybe if you can click back on that, Libby. I actually covered it for this version, recognizing that might cause some questions. Ultimately, this has not been leaked to the bike racers yet. So if the really nerdy bike stuff that I use, if any bike racer who is in the Chicagoland region or anyone who knows this race, if I had that visible, they would have been able to see the bike race. So we're keeping it. It was an artifact from a very intentional bike site that I was hiding.
So
it.
we're not hiding the race.
Right, we're not hiding the race. I was hiding the route until we have it approved from the village, of course. First.
Great.
Yeah.
I know you guys in the past have done an excellent job reaching out to the residents and the businesses that will be affected. It looks like on this course, we have a lot of residential streets that would be affected in the inside of this course that would be kind of cut off. Still going to do the same sort of outreach to make sure everybody really knows this course change?
That's correct. In previous years, we've worked with staff to ensure at least minimum 2 mailers have gone out. So there's maps, instructions, and so forth by mail. Cycle Brookfield does canvass the area immediately impacted by the race route, as we have in the previous 2 years. We would continue that, of course, as well. And, with staff, help and guidance here, if this is the course we choose for this year, we'd like to get the messaging out sooner than later, because this is a new impact. Previous years, canvassing the course, it actually was pleasantly surprised. We walk up to the door and someone says, yes, Chris, we're ready for the race. We can't wait for it. We're excited for it. There's new residents going to be impacted, so we want to be, sensitive and to that. So we want to provide the public enough time and notice to give them a route update, because these are going to be, it's a brand new impact. These residents never have seen a bike race go in front of their house, so we want to make sure that we give them enough lead time for that.
And when do you anticipate, if we approve this, signing the contract with the Chicago Grid?
As soon as I have the approval here, the contract is in my inbox. I will be signing that immediately following. Yes.
I have a question about the turn
Yes.
on the west end. Is it sharper than the one by the library?
Yes,
It is?
it is.
Okay.
Yes.
No concerns.
Any issue with the work at Creekside Park? Luke, are we doing anything there this coming year?
The construction won't be till next year, so it wouldn't be affected this year.
I have a question, because I don't know why I always focus on this. You had in the past, the races, a lot of the setup in the team tents, et cetera, were near the library, which made potty access pretty better. Where would they, do we need to bring in porta potties? Is that part of the plan? Do we have to bring in extra? Because it's not like everybody can shove into the train station or Irish Times, et cetera.
Yes. Yeah, so public porta potty access will be, we have to figure out where they would go this year, but we always have porta potties within the expo reach, and then they would be strategically placed around the course as well. So very likely we would have some that would be the west end, definitely by the volunteer staging and near the expo center. So last year I think I had 14 porta potties strategically placed throughout there. But
Right.
for bike racers specifically, where they stage, they're going to stage near, if this is the course, it would be near the Prairie Burlington staging area. So we would have maybe a larger bolus of porta potties specifically for the bike racers there.
That's all I was concerned about, more for them,
Yeah.
because they just had the luxury of the library last time, so that helped out a lot.
Yeah, and to that point as well, in previous years, as some of you may remember, the library has operated as a cooling center. We've had a very lucky and good collaboration with the library. Barring some businesses kind of stepping up, we may not have that opportunity this year with such a gracious partner to help with the cooling center. So there may be an opportunity to increase, water, wash stations, and porta potties this year, depending on the collaboration we have from local businesses.
Can you talk about where the crossings would be for pedestrians to cross the course?
Yep, absolutely. It's not finalized just as of yet, but we will strategically placing pedestrian crossings. It would be Burlington and north end of the course would be Burlington and Prairie. There'd be pedestrian access. So as the Prairie Ave grade crossing would be closed, hypothetically, there'd be parking on the Brookfield Ave stretch as we've used in previous years. So as spectators would park north of the tracks, cross over Prairie, and then if they wanted to go to the south end and into the Expo Center, there'd be a crossing immediately right in front of the start-finish line. We would have additional crossings, definitely by the South View section, but north of, I think that's Park, I believe. Then we would have some south on Prairie as well. And then we haven't decided if we would need additional crossings on the sort of southeast portion of the courses yet. So we actually anticipate this being a little less impactful from a pedestrian crossing than a previous course. We have a previous course we had is kind of an intersecting 8 sort of symbol, and there's a lot of impact, to different neighborhoods there. This is a little bit easier from a staffing perspective, at least according to what I can see from a volunteer stretch. So we may not have as many pedestrian crossings as we have in previous iterations.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And if residents wish to volunteer, how would they?
Cycle Brookfield. So you would contact. We'll put the call out for volunteer once we announce the course and of course the race itself. But everything would go to the cyclebrookfield.com website or on our Facebook page. We have a link to sign up for volunteer. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any concerns about being along the train and just the train horns and noises? Or
That's a good question. No, I've not seen that. And actually, in another race, it's in Lombard, which I believe some village board and staff have attended in previous years. It actually does. That course runs right along the tracks as well. So from a racer's perspective, I can personally attest to that. Your focus, right? We're laser focused on the bike wheel in front of us, and that's about it. Okay.
I will make a prediction, though, after years of Little League games and even our tree lighting, that a train will come by at the exact moment past the Prairie Avenue station, just as the final lap of the race is coming. So the announcer will have to really use this. I think they hold the trains east or west of us and send them by right when something big is about to happen, so.
Naturally.
But
yeah.
I think it'll just add to the excitement of it. They'll have to speak above the roar of the trains.
Yeah.
I know this.
Go ahead. No, please.
Excuse me.
Please.
I know this is pulling us away from the business district on Grand. I wonder if we can come up with some creative signage so that we can still show people, look, you just had a great time here. Maybe you want to stop by the restaurants, the bars along Grand, still get them some of that business.
That's a great idea. We've actually collaborated, had some conversation, early conversations with the businesses that are classically, along the original route on Grand. As I've noted, parking primarily, we're going to be asking all spectator parking to be north of the track. So the idea would hopefully be is that great, you just watch some fantastic bike racing. You sure absolutely visit Irish Times, but Sebastian's and Little Owl and Pisons are still north here, and your car might be parked there as well. So hopefully the idea is that the businesses that have supported us in the past on north end of 3700 block of Grand will also continue the business, but signage and so forth will be there as well to guide. Yes.
I had a question. Well, first, Chris, I'm glad that an alternative route was found. I was really stressed out about it, so I'm glad that worked
Same,
out.
yeah.
Thank you. But my question is more from the staff side. This is a different route. I see that every department has looked at, kind of the staffing needs for each portion, and I just wondered how that compares to previous years. Is everyone feeling good about it? Any concerns from staff side?
Sure. So we just had the kickoff meeting with that, and then we're going to be meeting every month after that. So the staff memo that I provided does have the input from PD, Fire, and Public Works as well. From the PD side, it actually seemed like it was an easier route than the one going through the downtown for this year. So no major concerns have been raised.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for everyone working together on it.
I actually have a little more question on that, maybe for Chief Caravilla. Yeah, I see in here that you don't see any major issues, but I keep thinking about the riders, this seems like a great route for them. I guess I'm a little concerned with people running back and forth across the tracks. And I don't know if there's thought to additional police assistance. I know we have the bars that go down and so forth, but if people are parking, run across, or if there's kids, and I just see it like a potential issue there, especially if that's the busy point at the start and finish, where there might be more of a crowd.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the concern, Trustee Gilhooly, and for what it's worth, for the last 2 years, we actually had great partnership and collaboration from Metro PD. They've actually, they dedicated, I believe, 3 officers both years to help us. So we'd certainly be making that same request again, that we would hopefully have that. And they seem to like it too. It's a good event for them to kind of be able to monitor and walk up and down. So if we have that assistance plus our own staffing, as Libby mentioned, our intention right now, our projection here is based on the same staffing levels. With less turns, we could probably put more officers up closer to the tracks and be there for that type of close monitoring.
Okay. Thank you.
And with that that stretch, start finish line right near the tracks. I mean, I brought this up, my concern when we were doing the tree lighting for the first time at the Historical Society, that people might go up towards the railroad to get a higher view of something and, get too close to the tracks. I mean, we talked about that concern, and I think the same thing could be addressed here, whether it's, a line of volunteers or police preventing people from getting too close to the train right away, or some type of temporary fencing that day so people don't, because that could be a prime viewing area, that area right along the frontage of the railroad. We just, as Trustee Gooley pointed out, we want to make sure it's safe. But I know we handled it before. It wasn't as big of a problem for the tree lighting, but it could be for this. But obviously, we'll anticipate that, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were actually able to do 2 layers for the tree lighting. So if there's ample staffing for that, we'll do the same. And as you said, there's other alternative options that we could consider if we believe that the crowds will be encroaching that closely.
I realize the challenge with the vendor area is always, the first year we, had it in the library, and I think we thought some of the vendors were maybe hurt by the location because the access in and out, they had to basically cross the race path to get in and out. Last year, we did it where we used the area outside by the turn, by the tracks, more for the vendor area. Is there a concern about putting it back within the confines of the race, that people getting in and out?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my opinion, this actually allows more exposure for the vendors coming in and out south end of Prairie. So if we needed to temporarily access, open up the barriers, we could come from the south end of Prairie for, vendors to access that area. So it would be a challenge. It's always a challenge to coordinate with the food trucks and vendors that are more mobile to come in and out. But we're still continuing our traffic interludes as we have in the past. We haven't penned down those times precisely yet, but the vendors would have really precise instructions when they can and cannot leave. However, we do believe that the ability and the accessibility, I should say, from the south end of Prairie should grant some more options for them.
I could see how it would be an attractive area to watch the race. It's like an infield, sitting in the infield watching a race go by. But if people want to get in and out to visit the vendor area and go to another site, I know there's the interludes where people could get in and out, but I'm sure it'll be a little bit challenging.
It seems like most of the viewing area, due to along the tracks there, is going to be from the inside anyway, right? It'll be from...
Yeah, viewing, it depends on, the exciting, it's,
Based on the north.
Based on the north end, yeah, most of the prime spectating area will be north, along the train station area, but Locomoca and so forth, right around that section, and then probably just west of Prairie on Burlington. That's the prime viewing from
What'll be the hot turn to watch?
But the hot turn to watch is
Yeah.
definitely Southview to Burlington.
Sure.
So if you really want to see something exciting, that's where you're going to go. If you're just sort of want to see the fast sprint finish, definitely going to be toward the top end.
Are there any tents you would allow on that west end so that people don't have to walk to the back to get...
We've considered it, but I think it's allowing of space and then encroaching also in a residential area. Since Prairie, if of course, if this option is considered, Prairie would be free of cars and any cars that are on there, so it would be a nice wide area for an expo. So it's kind of the most conducive spot for an expo at that time. And we do have, we'll have to coordinate with some of the businesses that are on Prairie for additional parking there as well. So there could be other opportunities, but keeping the vendors and the expo in one central area also makes logistics a little easier for us as well.
And I know the coordination with the businesses has always been excellent. Just picturing some of the business along there. The funeral home, Johnson Funeral Home that day, it'll have to, it'd be really hard for funeral to get in and out of there. They'll have to be, so yeah. I know the coordination will have to work there, and it's been good in the past. Any other questions or comments or concerns from the board?
Thank you very much, Chris, for all this. Thank you for everything you've been bringing to the village.
And
I absolutely love this race.
That's great to hear. I love hearing that. Thank you. Yeah.
Is there a formal board action, or are we just looking for a consensus here? Because it's not actually us taking so I guess what I'm looking for is there consensus from the board to support. As Libby indicated, each of the departments has reviewed this. We have a very detailed memo in front of us about the logistics and the plans and the needs for what our commit would be from the various departments. And our chiefs and public works staff looked at this very carefully and are becoming pros at this. After the race, it's, we get a lot of compliments. I'm the recipient of the compliments. I didn't do any of the work, but I'm the recipient of the compliments about what a great job our police, fire, and public works and everybody did. And had the privilege of talking to some of the racers after the race and just the excitement from them. And I think you said last year we were the second favorite route on the entire thing and just beat by one town because they had a hill. So, but to hear that excitement from the racers and what our staff does to make this happen is tremendous. So, is there a consensus from the board about the route?
Yes, but I don't recall how we did it in the past, but being that there's a $25,000 financial impact to that, is there board action that's needed for this?
The expenses are already included in department budgets. So that, we always give you the expense just so you have a full understanding of what the impact is to the village, but in terms of, that's, I think most of those costs are sunk.
But outside of, overtime costs, that would be separate, but in terms of staff that's here anyhow, we put a dollar amount on it, but it's not.
We budget for that in the annual budget, though, that's part of that.
Okay.
Annual budget.
But we don't need to,
Take any action? No.
How do we get Chief to race? Is he going to be in on that? No.
I think we all do.
Chris, what's the date? Do we have the date yet?
Yes, Wednesday, July 23. Yes.
Okay. All right, so is there consensus from the board to give staff the direction, that this route is acceptable? And then Chris and Cycle Brookfield will work with Chicago Grit to confirm the date and the logistics?
Absolutely.
Chris, thank you, and thank you to staff for all the work on this. Let us know when we hear for sure.
Again, always appreciate this collaboration. I will, underscore, police, fire, staff effort on this has been tremendous. And, this race would not be as successful unless the village and staff were as dialed in as we are. So thank you very much for your time and look forward to bringing on the third year in a row.
And I may or may not, this might not be on the middle of my Michigan vacation this year. I got to check.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know. I got to check with the boss, but it might not be in the middle of.
Hope to have you out on the bike there too then.
Either way, I'll come back. So, all right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is a continued discussion. We had a very good discussion at the previous meeting about the community center feasibility study. We had an excellent presentation, a lot of discussion at the last meeting. We did ask for more time to get an update. We indicated we're going to put the survey online, which staff did, to get some additional input and a chance for the board to think about it a little bit more. So I'll turn it over to Luke to kind of give us an update what's happened in terms of perspectives or input since the last meeting and what he's looking for from here.
So as President Garvey alluded to, we did put it on the website, the village website. And those are the main numbers I was going to talk about, unless you have any questions in regards to the presentation that we had on the January 27th meeting. But what we had was through the website traffic on our website for the community center webpage. We had about 217 visits, and these numbers are specific to being right after the board meeting on the 27th. So it was within the 2 weeks or so. We had about 217 views. Of those 217 views, we did get about 31 additional respondents to the questions that were posed on the Mentimeter. They were the same questions that were presented at the open house number 2. And I can kind of go through some of those numbers here. Here's where I was mentioning about the total visits, the 217, and then the 31 total respondents. So the first question we had was in regards to the building options. If you remember, the option A was the 2-story with the gym being on the first floor, and then the option B was the 3-story with the parking garage underneath and the gym being on the second floor. As you see there, out of the 31 respondents, we had about 26% for option B, 13% for option A, and then there was a choice of I like both. We had 19% on that. And then number 4 was 19%, I don't like either. And then 23%, I need more information regarding cost to decide. The next question that we posed was, which location do you prefer for the community center? One option was Ellert Park, which received 39% of the respondents, and then Kiwanis Park received 32%. And then the third option that they had was somewhere else or none of these, and that received 29%. Then we have, the final question was, what location on the site do you prefer for the community center for Ellert Park, since that park space is big? It has a lot of options, as you've seen in the presentation. One of the options was the west side, closer to Elm. That received 2 votes. So out of the 30 votes, respondents, there was 2 for that. And then for the west side, further from Elm, that received 3. The one north side that's behind the fire station, that seemed to receive the most votes with 17. And then the fourth option was at another location or none of these, and that received 8. So those were the questions that were on the Mentimeter. And these were respondents coming from right after the meeting, January 27th till now. I believe on February 7th, Friday, is when we marked it off, just so we can have it here for your presentation.
Thank you, Luke. So as Luke indicated, this was something the presentation was made to us. The board members discussed it, got input, and then we wanted these additional figures. But I wanted to make it clear what we're talking about here tonight. We're not deciding to build a rec center on a specific site tonight. We're not even deciding to build a Parks and Recreation Center. This is about furthering the feasibility study going forward. I mean, in order to kind of narrow things down and get more detailed cost estimates and other issues that we would have to deal with, staff and the consultants need a more specific direction from the board. So Tim, Stevie, and Luke, I mean, am I correct in that's what you're looking for the board is, I just want to make it clear, whatever the board decides tonight is not, we're not breaking ground and building anything. We still have a long way to go. It's about giving direction to staff to kind of hone these issues. And I think it's fair to say that the board can make a decision tonight and give direction for a specific site and a specific building option, and that it might never get built. It might not be the end product. It might not be the end location due to what the further feasibility study shows. Am I correct on that also? Because I think there's been some confusion in the public that, we're deciding tonight where to build a rec center, and that's not what we're doing tonight. We're just trying to give direction so we can concentrate staff and the consultants' efforts into looking at a specific direction to study the feasibility further and give the board more options and give the public more options going forward so we can narrow it down. I know the board's, up on that, but I just wanted to make sure the public understood that. So at this point, I'll open it up to board comments, board questions.
I have a question before a comment. The White and Company needs a site and a particular building type, and so we can only ask them to estimate one version, correct? Like through their scope of work?
So Williams Architect.
Williams, thank you.
So the whole idea is for them to have a preferred concept. So the next stage is what they're going to go through is the operation plan. Having one building option and one site, that helps them try to narrow down some of the expenses and costs that would come with that specific site and location. And then also help with the opportunities of the particular site and options to help narrow down the operation costs. But again, it would be just for, as President Garvey alluded to, for feasibility purposes only for the study.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the board?
I can share some concerns from the Conservation Commission, if that's helpful.
Please.
They had their meeting this past last Tuesday, and I shared this presentation and raised that with them. They do have some concern over it being quite so close to the creek. The Kiwanis Park location just from what happens with flooding from the creek in general, and the building being that close. So they just wanted to raise that it's kind of a risky location from a nature perspective, and just the rains by that location, and make sure we were considering that in our conversation.
I'm going to jump off of that, actually. We just, on the omnibus agenda, approved the hazard mitigation plan from Cook County. And one of the things that it specifically calls out is the risk of flooding and development within the 100-year floodplain. I think it would be irresponsible of us to try and develop something like this in that sort of space, in that 100-year floodplain within Kiwanis Park. And for that reason, among other reasons, like the parking not being, the parking already being in high demand, I think that I would oppose development in the Kiwanis Park location. That said, independent of the financial information that obviously still has to be explored, I think my strong preference, if we're getting down to it, is I like the design, the B design that incorporates that ground level parking. I think that's important in our landlocked community. We only have so much open space. Let's not cover it with parking. So I prefer the B with the parking, and I strongly prefer a location that's central to Elert Park and outside of those floodplains.
Thank you for getting that started. I think the way to start, I know it's a question 2 in the survey, is but maybe focus on the location, see if we can build a consensus on the preferred location. And Trustee Hendricks was kind of leading the way with the building option, but can we come up with a consensus on the preferred location at this point to have further feasibility studies done? Trustee Hendricks has indicated Eller Park is her preferred. How does the rest of the board feel about that?
That's also my preferred.
The fire station at Eller Park is definitely my preference.
You mean the fire station area, not the actual fire station?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So we just,
Absolutely. Option B, the fire station, just like when I had discussed at the last meeting, and what seems to be the choice up there too, so.
Trustee Kaluzny?
I agree. The fire station location and the option B with the parking underneath.
Okay, so. and-
Likewise.
I think we might be missing an opportunity at Kiwanis, just with its proximity to business district. And I also have some concerns about Eller Park in terms of just being surrounded by residents. But I also, it's a tough one for me. I think either location residents would support, so I'm fine being overruled on Eller. I just wanted to raise that concern.
And I had similar, I mean, when you brought it up during the previous discussion, I thought it was helpful, just the, the location, closest to one of our main business districts and things like that would be helpful. But I too share the concerns with the Eller Park location. I mean, if, we talk about the perfect storm nights, there's a concert in the park, there's Little League games at both fields, and the Village Hall is set up for the farmer's market the next morning. There's no parking on Arden. Luckily, we have people walk to the concerts in the park, ride their bikes to the concert in the park, but those events hopefully are still going to happen. So you have a concert in the park, you got 2 Little League games going on, the farmer's market is blocked off the front Village Hall because they have to start setting up the night before. I think there's people going to want to use this community and recreation center if it gets built on Friday nights and other nights. And I picture a 4th of July day, the 4th of July, trying to get parking anywhere near there if the parade's still going to end up in the park, and how many people can't find a place to park anywhere close on the 4th of July and some of the other events. I just think there's this, Trustee Cote brought up the idea, and I think it's been talked about, that the dream idea of kind of having a village campus, a village office campus where we have parks and recreation, the village hall, the police department all together. But I think this area is too saturated with those things right now. And we have spent a lot of time, effort, and emphasis on preserving the savanna, the oak savanna, and the creek, and the canoe launch, and making this kind of a nature area, an important conservation area. And I agree with the concerns of the Conservation Commission that I think building in that space back there would sort of, take away from some of that type of things that we've worked so hard to put in there, so. I don't necessarily have a vote on this, but I do support the decision to focus more towards Allard Park. And I guess it seems like if we're talking Allard Park, there's no other site other than the area behind the fire station that anyone's advocating for. Is that correct? So we got those two things down. And then in terms of the, building option, I think, is everyone on board with building option B? Is the, and again, this is just direction to go forward, send it out again, let them start doing work on the feasibility of this. And I don't need to prepare the board, I need to prepare the public that they may start doing further feasibility on this, and it might come back that, no, this isn't possible, or economically feasible, or feasible for other reasons because of X, Y, and Z, so.
I am concerned that it is the taller option, so being in a residential area and having it be the taller choice is a little bit concerning to me, but having the parking underneath and it looked like the more dynamic floor plan was more interesting, and it seemed to be the floor plan that people were most interested in. So my only concern about that one is
Sure.
the height portion of it and in comparison to what's around it.
I think having it set back inside of the park like it is, though, and behind the fire station, I think that'll help mitigate some of those things.
So, I think if I'm reading the board correctly, there's a clear consensus on Allard Park, option B, in terms of the building option to further study, and the location behind the fire station. Is that fair to say?
Majority consensus.
Yes.
Majority consensus. Okay. Is that what you needed from us tonight? And I thank staff for all the work. I thank the public for all the time. I know some people may say, just 31 people responded in the past 2 weeks, but, we know that more people went to the website. But even those 31 people, the time they took to give us some more input is meaningful. And we've had a chance over the past 2 weeks. I know you've had it and I've had it. People have approached us and talked to us and offered input and stuff. So, we're going to need, if this happens, it's going to come because of resident support going forward. So we appreciate that everyone took the time to come to the meetings, and there'll be future meetings and things. So please keep giving us your input on this. We're not breaking ground tomorrow on anything, so. And thank you, Luke, for all the work. All right. All right, the next item is an update to the village board on the adopted strategic plan goal status. I think it was in January of last year. Was it January? We had a meeting, and we set out some strategic goals, some big picture planning. That was one of those, we had some really good meetings about that, and the chance for the board to kind of step back and take a bigger view and come up with some strategic goals. And as we talk about when we do these plans, we don't just want these plans sitting on a shelf and nothing happening. We ask that staff come back and kind of give us an update afterwards, and that's what kind of tonight's about. So, do you want to, Stevie?
Yes, thank you, President Garvey. I'm going to try to pat my head and rub my belly at the same time here.
You got to control the cameras and this.
We
Yeah.
go to a strategic plan update. You hit the nail on the head. We often adopt plans from various different topics: safety, transportation, parks and recreation, open space, and strategic planning. What we don't often do is really highlight the work that's being put in behind the scenes that's unable to be highlighted in the day-to-day communication out to the public. So in January of 2024, the village board adopted our current strategic plan, and that was after a number of different exercises to create that vision planning and have the discussions with stakeholder interviews and determining what is the future of Brookfield. And we're talking immediate future and further out within the next decade. But there is a framework to why we do this, and the first is it is good governance. We want to make sure that we are on a regular basis, on a routinely basis, looking at where we're at as a community and where we should be going in the immediate future. So the village board took on that task of updating our strategic plan throughout 2023, again with final adoption in 2024. This illustrates just some of the highlight accomplishments, but again, there is a lot of work that goes into even a 2-day workshop exercise. Previous to that 2-day workshop, there are a number of stakeholder interview engagements, and then within that 2-day workshop, a lot of exercises to get consensus on objectives and mission that touches a number of different topics in the community, again, safety, sustainability, infrastructure. And what we saw coming out of those discussions was really some priority areas for the village board. I should say this 2-day workshop did include senior administrative staff as well, who participated in the day-to-day work investment into envisioning Brookfield's future. So some of the key priorities, themes that came out of our strategic plan are economic health, business and economic development and redevelopment, our infrastructure related to what is underneath us, as well as our owned facilities, pathways, greenways, parklands, and sustainability. So keeping a green lens on any actions we're taking within each department towards our goals, communications and community engagement, and then, of course, overall community quality of life and care. Within the goals identified, they were scored on a matrix system to identify what were short-term routine goals, short-term complex goals, and adversely long-term routine and long-term complex. What that means is we went over a number of different goals in a variety of different areas. We scored those, and we were able to categorize them into these 4 goal snapshots. Short-term routine does not mean it is necessarily easy by any means, but it does mean it has an expected completion date of 1 to 3 years, and it is typically can be accomplished in-house. So by village staff, with our general budget we already have at hand, we are able to complete short-term goals within 1 to 3 years utilizing what we have in-house on hand. When we speak about short-term complex, that is, again, within the same time frame of 1 to 3 years, but the complexity of it means we do not have the funding necessarily at our fingertips, or that it can be only accomplished in-house when we're talking about goal accomplishment. It's something we may need to bring in somebody disciplined in that particular goal and background and knowledge so that we can better achieve that goal. When we get into long-term routine and complex, again, same differences between routine and complex, but it's a longer time frame of about 3 to 8 years to complete. So the purpose tonight is to really go through what the identified short-term routine and complex goals and long-term routine and complex goals were as a reminder, and to give the board and the community an update on the work across departments that is going into either checking these off in full completion, if it's a routine short, for example, or to let you know what work is actively being done and will continue to be ongoing until completion. The snapshots I'm providing are the top 4 rated in each of these categories within that strategic plan, and it is attached to the memo provided. There are additional goals identified within each of those areas, but I want to highlight our top 4 as that is what staff has directed most of their attention to as it's been identified as a priority area for the board. So we have our development and implementation of design guidelines and landscape codes for commercial multifamily development, and renovations with flexibility for various settings. So that's really keeping an eye on our development and ensuring that we're establishing guidelines so that, anything can't be built in the community. We want to control that. develop a village-wide internal and external communications plan, improve residents' experiences through increased technology for permits specifically, processes, our website, and any other way we're communicating with the public and transactions and workflows. Additionally, adding an environmental sustainability frame or lens to our decisions, undertaking an energy audit of municipal facilities was requested. When we get into the active work day-to-day, this is not a plan that sits on a shelf and we put a feather in our cap. Staff is working diligently to try to achieve these goals we've identified for ourselves. Specifically within the finance department, when we're speaking about improved resident experiences through our processes and workflows and the communication we're providing, finance has implemented the Ion Water system, which allows every resident to access and know where their home is at in water usage. If they see an increase, that will be the first place that tells them they may potentially have a leaking toilet or faucet, for example, if they see increased water usage and nothing is different from their day-to-day. So this allows residents to really see in real time where they're at with their water usage and identify any issues and be able to communicate immediately. Finance has also implemented a new payment system. This creates ease and access to online payments. There is a new interactive voice response system. I learned what that was from Doug today. IVR, very fancy, very interactive, very ADA accommodating as well. So it checks off a number of different boxes when we are leaning towards holistic quality of life for residents. That new account system also allows for multiple properties at one time to use one account for maintenance and payment of their water system. And a sign up for reoccurring payments charged to an active credit card. Sometimes that can seem like a little thing, but our system now allows essentially auto billing, and it's something that people do not have to go in and remember to do. It's a regular service they receive every day, so they'll be able to track their finances a little more closely. And establishing separate counter processes, this is the in-person experience when you enter the village hall. We have separated out our building from our finance department with labeling so that anybody entering the village hall knows if I'm a resident, I can go to finance and water billing, or if there's a contractor or a developer or somebody checking in on a permit, they know to go to building. So separating those out has benefited us internally with staff on how they're able to assist residents, and then with the technological improvements in finance, residents are able to have more control over their water billing. Within Parks and Recreation, they're making some technological improvements as well. They are working on implementing an online pavilion reservation system, utilizing our existing RecTrack software. This will allow any resident or visitor to view the pavilion and field rental schedule online. So if they were thinking about some dates, they'll be able to view it on a calendar rather than having to call village staff and wait for a reply if they're busy. They can go in, see the availability real time, and then online digitally make their reservation. This is currently a paper process. It is a very lengthy and cumbersome paper process, so digitizing that saves staff time and definitely makes it easier for residents to partake in any extracurricular activities within our park system. They have implemented auto billing as well, specifically for the before and after school STARS program, preschool and summer camps. This is families and young families are very busy. Establishing an auto billing allows for them to register, set up their payment system, and continue on being serviced by the department without any barriers and non-payment or change in card information. Additionally, not identified as a priority goal, but a goal that they have started working on. Luke at the helm of Parks and Recreation is the capital improvement plan for the park system. A comprehensive park analysis plan was provided at our budget workshop to navigate and support our budget process for this year, and it'll be further developed into an outlook 5-year capital improvement plan. So already making strides towards accomplishment of non-priority identified goals, but wanted to highlight that here for them. Community development, Libby has 3 pages of additional goals in 2025. That is incredibly impressive, and I'm happy to send you after following, because that department has been incredibly busy, especially when we start to make those connections to our strategic plan. We have a comprehensive zoning code update that has been ongoing since February of last year, and we are getting very, very close to being able to present a final draft and further discussions on finalization of that zoning code update. That is where you'll see the inclusion of some design standards, cleanup of our zoning code in general, targeting some multifamily issues that would like to be cleaned up. So some of the other goal areas within the plan, this comprehensive zoning code is going to encompass a lot of those identified. The department has seen a reorganization of the structure of their department. It's assisted with efficient property and building maintenance. It's assisted with our adjudication process and streamlining that and oversight. It's assisted with the internal workflow and process, and we see some outside benefits as well, other than just internal efficiency and process. The department is adopting cloud permit this year. You can see the deadlines and goals for each of these separate modules. Again, further developing that department in each of those areas within the building module, planning, economic development, and code enforcement. It's going to allow us to store, track, and keep our business licensing as well as our permit processing in a much more easily trackable way. We've implemented over-the-counter permits. It has increased the number of permits that we're turning around in a given time, both in quantity, and it has decreased wait times for contractors waiting for permits that they were previously on the hook for days for. We have now been able to turn that around over the counter. So a lot of time saving when it comes to residents, contractors, developers, and staff's oversight of that process has been improved. Website updates, this is true across all departments, and I'll highlight Bob, our new communications and marketing manager. He has elevated our internal and external communications in ways that we are really proud of. Again, we'll highlight it a little further down, but specifically community development has focused on updating and making information more accessible and easier to understand through existing permit videos and a goal of this year to implement additional videos. Those are how-tos and tutorials and what you should know, so that if a resident wishes, they're not reading through packets or pages of information, they're watching something if they're more of a visual learner. So we're trying to create some more options and intake of information, both in reading, visual, listening. Those videos will also have auditory overlay to anything being explained. So we're trying to create different mediums for people to consume information. We have also just recently implemented property maintenance through the C-Click Fix application. Historically, after implementation, initially it was utilized for public works and to report any work order items like potholes or street lights out. We've now incorporated property maintenance into that reporting, so residents can self-report any property maintenance nuisances and issues. We are tracking that. We don't want to overwhelm Jordan in the code enforcement department. So right now, after implementation, we are monitoring to see how that process goes. And for now, it's when with 6 to 8 inches of snow, we won't see a whole lot of reporting. The real assessment will come in once the weather starts to break and spring and summer are here. But that will be under continual watch. Within the village manager's office, in our previous village board meeting, we did enter into an agreement with MGP. They are our current GIS provider as part of the consortium we're in. They have a business operations module that allows us to use the software we already own and use that to its fullest efficiency. And that allows us to work with MGP to create apps within the M365 environment that allows us to do things like digital platform for liquor license renewals. We utilized M365 to create our own application to allow business owners to do their liquor license renewals. And in the survey of that process to those business owners, we received all positive feedback, and some of them saying they saved hours of time compared to the typical process. We were selected as the third cohort for the EV Readiness Grant. There's an item on our agenda to discuss an additional electric vehicle grant option, but we are staying cognizant of our sustainability goals and how this shapes and fits into our strategic plan. I touched on website development. One of the added boost areas of website development is Bob's ability to track the Google Analytics of our site visits. So we're looking at frequently visited pages and most visited areas so that we can improve the access, quicker access to that information. We don't want places that people are visiting frequently to be buried under 6 clicks. We want them to be able to get there under 3. And I touched on this. I will sing Bob's praises a little more. As the new communications and marketing manager, he has made updates to our existing Brookfielder quarterly newsletter. He's collaborated with community development to create a community development newsletter specific to development, land acquisition, purchases, and what's going on in the community. Our participation in 3CMA, that is a communications and marketing association specific to municipalities. So he's connecting with his peers in that specific discipline and taking what he's learning and bringing it back to Brookfield so that we are as competitive in communications and marketing as our municipal peers, as well as sharing information. And I did touch on the M365 Teams environment. We do have another application that we are getting ready to roll out to our village staff. It is essentially an intranet, but it's built using Teams, and we can create those groups in Teams and have created a site within that system accessible only by village staff where they can get all of the information on HR and policies and IRMA accident incident forms. So a lot of the frequently used information across departments is now going to be in one location, whereas previously it had to be hunted down or asked for, and then you had to wait to see the reply. So this will be a quicker, easier communication internally between staff and access to frequently used forms. Within the police department, they have developed a number of internal improved communications. Again, using the MGP model, they are now tracking and training schedules in the process of where they're at in completion. I had no idea how many trainings officers had to do annually. It's a lot, and it's a lot to track for each officer. So they are preparing to roll out the tracking of that within that system, which will make it easier for supervisors, lieutenants, command staff to check to see where our officers are at in the process. And it's a small thing, but it's very important because it is the public safety of the community and making sure that everybody and our officers are where they should be. The organizational restructure of command staff, we were able to add a second deputy chief to the structure of the command staff department. which opened up another position as well at the sergeant's level. But when we look at the efficiency and the strategic goal of streamlining staff and utilizing what we have in more efficient ways, either through increasing or decreasing within any department, this move allowed us to open us up to increased pursuit of grant application, higher focus on operations, while also having an end goal within that department of potential accreditation. So with the goals the department has, this restructure is really going to allow them to spread their wings a little bit and attack those a little more aggressively. Implementation of frontline software. There's a new digital reporting application for residents. They can request overnight parking, vacation watches, and also report nonviolent crimes like graffiti or property damage directly to the police department. So historically, those were emails and paper processes. They're now going to be able to live in that system, be tracked, and be referenced to when assigning any special duties and overnight or vacation. We do have an updated handicap parking permit process as well. Bill Goosens within the police department has overhauled that, which will make it easier moving forward to process renewals and process new applications as well. They've also made some updates to our village ordinances, and this is specific to the use of our DACRA system, which is used for e-ticketing. The efficiencies there allow for easier payment by anybody ticketed. So previously, they had to make a call, come in person, wait for adjudication for judgment. There are a number of violations that allow somebody cited to just go ahead online and make that payment without having to take time out of their workday to attend an adjudication for judgment. So it's easier for a resident or visitor cited, and it's also easier to track the historical information and data internally for our staff. Within the fire department, they've made a number of internal technological upgrades for improved efficiencies, hardware replacements, and utilizing the softwares within their fire system a little more efficiently as well. Our fire chief has attended an informational seminar and grant writing class. This is related to infrastructure and facility development within our strategic plan with future planning, wanting to be prepared for if and when expansion can happen within the firehouse. So he is seeking and participating in that discipline knowledge to better position Brookfield when an opportunity does open up. And that's a stride toward goal accomplishment. Within Public Works, they are beginning to create a number of different SOPs or standard operating procedures. This will help them internally track and communicate and identified processes, as well as be able to explain process and next step or generalities with residents who may call with questions. So we're looking forward to them establishing more SOPs for their general operations, which allows with knowledge and carryover from one division to the next or one employee to the next. I do want to highlight here within the village short-term routine goals, that sustainability lens and focus is identified there. We do have a number of village staff actions and initiatives that are allowing us to make strides in our sustainability plan. The Conservation Commission would like to do that together. So we don't want to, this is just a teaser for you guys. We're doing green things and we're doing accomplishments within our sustainability plan. We're going to present those together with Conservation in April, but we do call out one or two important things within the presentation. Short-term complex goals. This is a reminder of what is included within that area, top prioritized. Innovative programming to fill empty retail spaces, developing strategies to facilitate the revitalization of Ogden, working to assemble development and redevelop sites, and consider upgrading village alley improvement and paving program for village alleyways. Community development are the heavy lifters here. It is very specific to our economic vitality in our empty retail spaces, what we're doing to assemble, develop, and redevelop, and what kind of strategies are we taking to revitalize Ogden. We see the success so far of Brookfield Shops at Progress Park, and we're looking forward to having that fully implemented this summer. But that is an innovative, creative way to try to move towards filling our empty retail spaces. With that incubator program, having a small business owner who is not yet ready for brick and mortar will allow them to try that out, and we will be ready if it's successful or they would like to move towards brick and mortar with a number of options here in Brookfield, where we hope that they will want to stay if successful within the incubator program. Ogden Cleanup Project, one of the first things that Libby and her team did was to utilize our contract with BNF, our inspection services, to tackle Ogden corridor properties that would be checked in on inconsistently or not as detailed as they could have been. With BNF, they have really been tackling that corridor in addition to other areas in Brookfield systematically and with consistency and follow-up so that anything shared requested is now being done. And we're seeing the effects of that targeted area and improvement in communication with business owners. Land acquisition for development, we are going to be seeing our first RFP for development in our downtown Grand Boulevard corridor. That's very exciting. We had to acquire that land, and we had to issue all of the scope of work within a request for a proposal to get the best and highest use in our downtown region. And I don't think in Village's history that we've had that type of control over that size of a development. So that's a huge stride towards that strategic plan goal. Also noteworthy are other properties amidst development. AutoWorks property, unfortunately, that came about because of a collapse of their building. However, the Community Development Department did have to work diligently to get the demolition order and be able to start development talks with a replacement. So all in 1 year, we had a blight property that is getting demoed and now ongoing discussions with a new development already taking place. So that is a proud accomplishment. When we talk about our village alleyways, a little bit of a sensitive topic. However, what we are doing is what we can control with what we have at our fingertips. And what we can control is how we approach the maintenance of our alleys for the time being. We're utilizing, that should say GIS, not see-click-fix. We're utilizing GIS and their asset management feature to track alley grading with the goal to improve service and proactive maintenance. So what the Streets and Alley Division does within GIS is they document and they track the work that gets put into grading and leveling. They put a timestamp on it, and that can be used in historical data reference. When a new request comes, they can take a look and see how often that they're grading an alley or how much stone they're adding to it or how frequently they get to an area. So none of that data is tracked currently. Utilizing GIS, they're going to be able to make some better proactive maintenance decisions moving forward. One of the goals this year is to identify additional grant programs that would qualify alleys as a submittal. We know there are MWRD grants. It would not be totally effective, but one alley a year is better than no alleys a year. So we are attempting to have a better approach towards grant options for paving our alleys. It gets a little more sparse here.
Here, Stevie, why don't we just give you a break for a second? Why don't you take a drink of water?
Tea.
Take a drink of water. I just, take a breath for a second, just because you've been, this, and I just want to say, I was going to say this at the end, but it just will give you a chance to take a breath. I don't like to speak for the board, but I think this is exactly what I was looking for when we, when we adopted this plan. You know, here it is a year later, and the detail in this in terms of, you know, the way what's broken down between the complex and routine and long-term and short-term goals, to see what each department is doing has been very helpful. And I know just making the presentation has taken a lot of work, but this is just a good reminder of why we spent, 2 days in May last year, long nights at the library, and all the work that went into that ahead of time to see how these things reflect back. So I appreciate all the time and effort that went into this. And just wanted to give you a break. If you didn't have any,
Thank you.
do you want a bottle? I'll go get you a bottle of water.
I think I'm okay. My back's a little sweaty. I didn't realize how hard I was leaning in here.
Okay.
Thank you, President Garvey. Always looking out, giving us goals and direction that we can follow and breaks during meetings. Thank you. When we get into long-term routine, again, 3 to 8 years in completion, but they are things that we can do with resources at our fingertips for the most part. The board identified continuing to carry forward and maintain a proactive approach to our infrastructure and improvement programs, working to advance and accomplish our community and organizational sustainability goals, and developing and implementing public information strategy to share our accomplishments and successes. I will use this board presentation as a minor checklist where we are demonstrating our accomplishments and successes publicly. When we talk about long-term routine, one of those goals, again, is continuing to carry forward and maintain the village's proactive infrastructure. We have water mains that are over 100 years old. I think at a rate of about 51% of those mains are classified as 100 plus. We have state unfunded mandates and lead water service replacement, and then we have our own road programs outside of those identified infrastructure projects. In 2024, I wanted to highlight that we had one of our largest infrastructure investments of Brookfield's history, with over $15 million in projects completed. Higher note to shine a spotlight on here, that did not all come out of Village General Fund. There were a lot of grants pursued and awarded, a lot of no-interest loan funding that was pursued and awarded. So that is not out of the cost of taxpayers alone, board alone. That is a collection of grants, no-interest loans, and capital resource that we've put aside. We were able to construct the 31st Street parking lot, which is used as a exhibit to other developments and how we want these types of developments to look. We replaced over 6,300 feet of water main within 2024 alone. I think next year's target is like 8,000 feet of water main. And the lead water service replacement project alone, over 1,000 lines replaced in 1 year. The approach that Brookfield is taking towards our lead water service project and water main infrastructure is pretty unprecedented. Nobody in our area is doing that, and only a select handful across the state. So that really is kudos to Brookfield, to Hancock Engineering, to the village board for being able to support those projects.
And I can verify that just from being at the WCMC. One of the main questions I got is, how are you guys doing so much?
Is everyone so jealous?
They were very jealous, and I was very proud of the work that we had done, so.
Yeah. Tim and I were just at ILCMA amongst our peers across the state, and it's kind of nice to impress other people. Proactivity. And of course, the road program and Burlington Avenue are included in these projects as well. 2025 isn't going to shy us away from capital projects. We have over 20 million budgeted in infrastructure projects, to include the local road program, the Brookfield, Grand Boulevard, and Gulf Road streetscape improvement program, the water main replacement program, and our lead service line replacement. All of these are accomplishing that long-term routine goal of maintaining our infrastructure and proactivity in maintenance. But it's also a huge kudos to staff and oversight of these projects once they're in it. That's a lot that goes in from pre-construction to completion. These are highlights that are specific to communication. With our new first-time communications and marketing manager, I think we've organically seen the improvements, and I've heard the positive feedback from residents on our Brookfielder information that we're posting in there, making it a little more meatier and relevant to what is going on now and immediate future, rather than generalities from information across departments. The implementation of the community development newsletter I had stated. Something for residents to know that we'll continue to highlight within the upcoming Brookfielder as well is within our website, you can sign up for any updates from any web page of your choosing. So that means once you sign it up, you can select text, email, or both. And if you are most interested in capital improvements, if we make any changes to that capital improvements page, you'll get an alert automatically that there has been a change made on that page. And that goes with any of our pages on the website. So we do encourage people to stay up to date on that. You don't have to know everything, and you don't have to get unsolicited information that you don't care about. You get to decide what information you receive and get the updates. So that is an exciting addition to the website. Here's where we get a little more complex. Complex goals are typically estimated to take 3 to 8 years or more to completion. And the complexity means we don't have those resources at our fingertips. It takes some partners to get pulled in. So we have funding for ongoing infrastructure improvements and street bonds, development and execution of innovative strategies to achieve improvement along Ogden and Congress Park on those development areas. And then dependent on outcome of our feasibility study, build something. We'll get there when we get there. And we have developing strategies and approaches to address residential affordability options and availability. This is where we're starting to get to the light part ending of our presentation. These are long-term complex, so while we will continue to work and keep these in our purview, we are not there in totality as far as goal completion. Something to highlight, in 2026, the first of the road program bond will be issued and paid in full. Following that, we can investigate the possibility of going to referendum to replace the debt service tax levy with a new property tax line or retire the debt service levy. The 2 remaining debt services for the remaining 2 road program bond issues will be eliminated in 28 and 30. So that's a good kind of more future immediate outlook as to where we're at with our bond issues for road improvement. We have some additional long-term complex goals that are being tackled by Parks and Recreation as we can. The feasibility study is currently ongoing, and with the board's direction tonight, we can anticipate to see a final recommendation and presentation by Williams and their support partners in second meeting in March or first meeting in April of '25. Goal identified within the strategic plan is facilitating planning and future construction of Salt Creek and South Kiwanis Trail. We have received the National Park Service Technical Service Grant, which is allowing us to work with an NPS trail technician to identify final concepts and adages within that trail system. In December, we did submit an ITEP grant for bridge and trail construction. We have not heard back on award yet. And in December, we were notified of the OSLAD grant award for Creekside Park for Phase 1 development. So we are working, and we're excited to be able to cross some of these things off and work towards goal accomplishment. We'll continue to make these updates as we progress through our strategic plan.
Thank you, Stevie. Other than that, did you guys do anything this year? Other than that? Okay. Questions or comments from the board?
I feel like I should applaud.
No, it's,
It's awesome work, so it's great to look back and see the accomplishments, because it does feel like it gets routine, right, that you're doing all these things. So to take a step back and kind of tally all of those accomplishments and kind of what's next and prioritize next steps is, I think, great. And having the communications to be able to communicate what we're doing and not just have it stay internally, I think is also wonderful. I did have a question around, just there's a lot of new online ways to do things with different systems like Frontline and the permit and See-Click Fix and all of these. And I think just getting those on a regular communications in front of people. I see See-Click Fix in every newsletter, but making sure people know about those other ways to report things with the police or others, I think are awesome. And I think people will be excited to know about all those other ways that they can do things online.
I hope you will be happy with our next Brookfield.
I'm excited about it. Thank you.
other questions or comments from the board?
No, I just, as someone who looks at strategic plans a lot in my professional life, they often get written and then just forgotten. So thank you for staying on top of it and giving us this update. I appreciate it.
I think it's even more impressive, when we sat down for those meetings in May of last year, I think there were 2 nights back to back, we spent all that time, and, the board really gave a lot of input with help from staff, and we came up with these goals, and to think how much progress we've made, despite the things that we didn't plan for. I mean, when you see some of the things that we've accomplished and the things that have changed, is that we've had changes in staff, major changes in staff in various departments and things that still did not prevent us from making this much progress. And, staff has done a tremendous amount of work on this, but also I always want to comment on how much our volunteer staffs and commissions help us towards these goals. I mean, conservation and beautification and everyone else and the planning and zoning, the volunteers that serve on those commissions have helped in the amount of expertise, the resident experts that we have in this town in certain fields that help us get ahead on some of the sustainability features and other features have really helped us move forward. So it truly takes a village to make all this happen, and it's very impressive as to what you guys have been able to do within a year or so. Thank you. Okay, so that leaves one item left for tonight, discussion regarding acceptance of a Drive Cleaner Illinois electric vehicle charging station grant. Again, we have a detailed memo from Libby, but I'm going to ask Libby to make a presentation for the public and the board.
Stevie broke the PowerPoint.
It needs a break.
We're going to take a break from PowerPoint, I think.
I'll just tell you
Just do the old-fashioned way. You can talk to us.
She's going to mime it.
So the Driving a Cleaner Illinois was established to provide EV charging infrastructure grants, and staff submitted an application on May 9th of last year. We received notice on November 27th that Brookfield was one of the recipients, and we're the recipient of a $140,000 grant. The caveat is that we have to match $70,000 of that, and that is for 4 Level 2 EV charging stations at Village Hall and 3 at Ellert Park. We do have the option, because we were under a time crunch at the time, we kind of had to pick spots really quickly, and I worked with Hancock and with Trustee Kaluzny in picking that. We do have the option if we do need to move it to a different location, because there were some other locations as well. So the next steps that we would need to do is to, 1, accept the grant, which is why we're here, 2, accept periodic performance reports and periodic financial reports. We're not quite there yet because we haven't done anything with it. And then the last step is the actual installation of the EV charging stations, which they're not in the budget for 2025. The anticipation is that we would start implementing that for 2026.
Thank you, Libby. Open up to questions, comments from the board, direction.
Would this potentially be a revenue source for the village?
That's a
Or
great
potentially recoup the costs of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And since it's part of our sustainability plan, the plan is to apply for additional ones and then look at whether the village would like to charge for those. So we looked at Oak Park as an example. It's 25 cents per 25 cents per kilowatt hours. So that would be an estimate of about 30 to 40,000 a year that we could recoup, and that's kind of on the conservative end. So the plan would be that we would be able to charge for all of them or some of them, so that way we could recoup some of that. Especially since this is just for the infrastructure, it's not for the ComEd, it's not for some of the other items that have to go along with actually setting up the EV chargers.
I think that there's also some programs from ComEd for that piece of it. So
There are.
incentives from ComEd for the actual laying the line or laying the electricity and installation there too.
Right, and now that we're the third cohorts with the mayoral caucus, we actually have a meeting next week to kind of talk about how does this all come together, and what are some of the other grants that we can apply to, because they're helping villages kind of map this out as we go along. What can we charge? What's the next step? Where can we implement it? So yes.
I know the Conservation Commission also offered, if it's helpful for our future planning there, to hold a public session on like where do you want to see EV charging in
Oh, that would be
Brookfield,
very
and
helpful.
that's something that we could do here or at the library, but wanted to make sure we had some money to actually do
Right,
it
to
before we
do
just had like an imaginary session
Right.
brainstorming.
That
So
would
if
be
that's
helpful.
something that's helpful, we could talk about dates for that.
Right.
So I guess the threshold question for the board is, do we want to accept the grant? I mean, it is a $70,000 match. As Libby indicated, it would come out of next year's budget. I see Doug kind of. Doug
I'm glad
always-
it's next year's budget.
Doug's already working on next year's budget and thinks he can come up with $70,000 if the, so, I mean, it's the threshold question, are we, want to accept the grant and give staff direction to go forward with the grant?
I do.
I think it's time, yeah, in
Do,
this direction.
is there specific board, is there anyone that is not in favor of, okay. Does the board actually, do we need to actually take formal action, or are you just looking for a consensus tonight?
Well, I'm looking for approval to accept the grant, so you'd be signing on the grant, for the grant
Okay.
acceptance.
But I guess do we need a resolution, or, I mean, can we do that tonight? We would probably need a resolution. So can we put it up in 2 weeks for, I think, do we have time to do that?
No. We could put it in 2 weeks, yeah, absolutely.
Put it up in 2 weeks for a resolution to accept the grant. And then you talked about that, and I know these grants come up on kind of short notice and short response time, and I know you worked very diligently, and I know Trustee Kaluzny was a big help. The different locations, or the option of different locations, is that something that needs to be addressed now, or is that something in the future?
Probably by the end of the year. So we've asked for an extension because under this grant, the goal was to try to get municipalities to start setting them up by the end of 2025, but that doesn't work logistically with a lot of municipalities. So they've granted us an extension on that. So I would think that we could make some decisions by the end of the year, as long as they see that we're making progress.
And with Trustee Kaluzzi's offer of, maybe having some public input on this, helping to decide where,
Absolutely.
locations and I understand why the locations were picked and the short notice and everything else like this, but it might be good to hear about where they might be most beneficial.
I think we picked it because of it was property we owned.
Right.
So we would have more say over where those could go, but yeah.
Right. And we actually initially, when we picked it, we thought we had 20 different chargers that we can work with. And then the grant applicants, or the grant administrator kind of reeled us back in, so we only had 14, so we had to pick 2 of the 3. But we do have that option if we are going
Sure.
to change it.
Well, I mean, bring it forward to if you need input from the board on that, about the change locations. I mean, let's put the resolution up for the February 24th meeting to accept it, and the board can obviously consider it further before then, but let's put it up on the agenda for the 24th. And then as we go further, we could talk about, possible different locations if we want to change or use these 2 locations as a starting point and expand the program in the future with other locations.
Certainly.
I have a question.
Yes.
When a municipality adds these, Do you then have to hire a third party for the management of, maintenance of, et cetera? Or can that be all handled in-house?
My understanding is that you would hire a third party to manage it. I haven't researched it that far into it. I don't know if trustee Kaluzny knows more on that end.
I think most are like through a, through a service like ChargePoint or something else where there's a maintenance contract associated with them.
Do they also handle the pay also associated to it if you start charging?
It depends on the system you use, yeah.
Well, that'd be good information to have going
Yeah,
forward.
that would be important to
Yeah.
know, because that would change cost structure, ongoing cost structure.
Right, no, good point. So, and again, I know this was a short time frame as going forward. Now we can, and trustee Kaluzny's expertise, we can maybe figure out the true investment that we might need and what the options would be for maintaining. And, if we do come up with a pay system or it's a complementary service for now and other locations are paying in the future, these are all things we could talk about going forward. But I guess the key thing is to, accept the initial grant if that's the board's desire, and then we can work out the logistics from there.
I'm curious, are there other municipalities in this third cohort with the mayor's caucus that have received this funding as well? Do you know?
I don't know for certain. We're having another meeting next week, so I can find out.
It'd be interesting to follow the
Right,
journey
to
with
see.
them, so we're not,
Yeah.
we're not all asking the same questions.
Right.
And lessons learned, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, let's put it up for the February 24th. Thank you. Okay, that ends the items we had up for discussion on tonight's committee of the whole meeting. Once again, I will open up the meeting to public comment. Is there anyone on my right side that would like to make any public comment? Hearing none, is there anyone on my left side? Barb? Or was that CP again?
Well, thank you, President Garvey, for clarifying any misunderstanding regarding a rec center at, in Village. I shouldn't say at Ellard Park, but in the Village. The one thing that does bother me is that the general public was presented with two options, of which I think they were both high-level options. And it would seem to me that the village should have more input into what those options are. Basically, first of all, I'm not in favor of this particular type of rec center. I have always been in favor of a rec center, but I think this is just too much. And I would, if anything, like to see something scaled back to not necessarily the bare minimum, but certainly not such a high end. And possibly it would be more acceptable to the general public as well.
Sure. And I mean, in terms of the two options, those just weren't randomly picked. There was the input from the community about what types of things they'd like to see in a rec center, what amenities and that type of thing, and it was kind of built out from there. So it's not just the consultant offered us here's the two cookie cutter options you have. It was based on the study and the feasibility, or the desires of the public meetings going forward. And I understand that, you might want another option, but I don't want to just make it seem like those were randomly submitted to us.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Barb. Any other on my left side? Okay, hearing none, there is not a need to go into executive session tonight. So at 8:50 PM, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
The motion to adjourn was made by trustee Cote, second by trustee Kaluzny. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark?
Aye.
Trustee Cote?
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks?
Aye.
Trustee Miramatsu?
Aye.
Trustee Gahuli?
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny?
Aye.
Motion.
Okay, we're adjourned at 8:50 PM. Thank you for coming.